I wish to make our position plain beyond any matter of doubt as regards the African continent. We in Nigeria appreciate the advantages which the size of our country and of its population give us, but we have absolutely no aggressive intentions.
Let me say from the onset that I regard this as a Nigerian problem to be solved by Nigerians. Our problems have been complicated by foreigners who think they understand Nigerians or Africans better than we do ourselves.
Since 1960, the seat of the Nigerian presidency has been one of the most dangerous, dramatic, and powerful seats in Africa. In this video, we are going to unfold the ultimate history of every leader who has ruled Nigeria. We will reveal exactly how they fought their way to power, how some were violently overthrown, and how others were assassinated in cold blood. But that's not all. Some of these men died while sitting on the throne of power. We'll look closely at their final moments, their mysterious demises, and the last words they ever spoke. From tragic assassinations to sudden natural deaths behind closed doors, every single transition changed the course of history. You do not want to miss a single minute of this story, so make sure you wait and watch till the very end. You are watching African Files. Click on subscribe button so you'll be the first person to be seeing our videos whenever we upload a new video, and also tell us where you are watching from across the countries. On October 1, 1960, Nigeria finally became free from British rule. The streets were full of joy and celebrations, but the country had a big problem from day one. The British left Nigeria divided into three huge regions: the North, the West, and the East. Because of this, the different ethnic groups started fighting over who would control the big money and power at the center. But finally, two men were put in charge. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was given a title as president, but he did not have the real power. The man with the real power was Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the fourth prime minister. People called Balewa the golden voice of Africa because he was an amazing calm speaker. On that first day, he told the world that Nigeria was ready to become a giant. But behind the smiles, things were getting ruined. People started complaining about corruption, politicians stealing votes, and tribalism. By 1960, the Western region was in total chaos. People were burning houses and cars over politics. Balewa tried to calm things down, but inside the army, some young soldiers were already planning to overthrow him. On the midnight of January 15, 1966, the bad news arrived. Soldiers with guns broke into Balewa's house in Lagos. They forced their way into his bedroom. Balewa was a very religious and quiet man, so he did not fight them. He only asked the soldiers to give him a few minutes to say his last prayer. After praying, he put on his shoe and walked out with them. They threw him into a military car and drove off. For days, nobody knew where the prime minister was. 6 days later, they found his body dumped in a bush by the side of the road outside Lagos. He was found sitting up against a tree, still wearing his white clothes. Because his body stayed in the bush for days, people still argue about how he actually died. The army said the soldiers shot him dead that same night, but some people who found the body said they did not see any bullet holes. They believed that because Balewa had bad asthma, the heavy stress and fear of the kidnap made him choke and die. No matter how it happened, the golden voice was gone. Balewa died a poor man. He did not have big house or secret money outside the country. His death ended Nigeria's first democracy, but Nigeria never forgot him. To honor him, His face was placed on the front of the 5 naira note, which millions of Nigerians still hold in their hands today. Now, what about the other leader, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe? While Balewa was fighting for his life on that bloody night in January 1966, Azikiwe was not even in the country. He had left Nigeria on a cruise ship for a medical vacation outside the country. Because he was aware, he completely escaped the soldiers who were killing other top politicians. After the soldiers took over, Azikiwe lost his position as president. He stayed out of active politics for a long time, but later returned to help the country when democracy tried to come back. Unlike Balewa, Azikiwe lived a very long life. He did not die a violent death. He died a natural death from sickness on May 11, 1996 at the old age of 91. Because he was one of the greatest fathers of the nation, Nigeria also honored him by printing his face on the 500 naira notes. After Balewa was killed and the government collapsed, the entire country was in total confusion. The young soldiers who started the trouble did not know what to do next. Since there was no president or prime minister left to run the country, the remaining politicians officially handed the power over to Ironsi. That is how he became Nigeria's very first military head of state. But Ironsi's time at the top was very short, and it was full of heavy trouble, because the young soldiers who killed Balewa were mostly from the Igbo tribe, and Ironsi himself was also Igbo. Leaders from the north became very suspicious. They felt the January coup was a plan to wipe out northern leaders and give the Igbo tribe total control of Nigeria. To make matters worse, Ironsi made a huge mistake. He passed a new law called the Unitary Decree. The law cancelled the system where different regions managed themselves and put all the power and money directly into Ironsi's hand in Lagos. The move made the North even more angry. They felt their voice was being completely erased. By July 1966, just 6 months after Ironsi took over, Northern soldiers decided to take their revenge. Ironsi traveled to Ibadan to give a speech and was staying at the government house with his friend, Colonel Adekunle Fajuyi. Early in the morning on July 29, Northern soldiers surrounded the house with guns. Fajuyi tried to protect Ironsi, telling the soldiers that he would not allow them to kidnap his guest inside his own house. But the soldiers did not listen. They grabbed both Ironsi and Fajuyi, stripped them of their military uniforms, and tied them up. They loaded them into a military truck and drove them into a lonely forest along the Ibadan-Iwo Road. The soldiers gave them beatings before shooting both of them dead and buried their bodies in shallow grave in the bush. Ironsi was only 42 years old when his life was violently cut short. He came to power to stop a fire, but the anger in the country was too big for him to control. His death opened up an even darker chapter for Nigeria, and the seat of power was handed over to a very young officer, General Yakubu Gowon. After Ironsi was killed, the Northern soldiers who took over needed a new leader. They chose a young officer named Yakubu Gowon. He was only 33 years old, making him the youngest person to ever rule Nigeria. Gowon did not plan to become the head of the state, but suddenly, the heavy load of a divided nation was dropped on his shoulders. Right from the start, the country began to tear apart. Because of the killings of Igbo leaders and citizens, the eastern region led by Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu decided they wanted to break away from Nigeria completely. They declared themselves a new independent country called Biafra. Gowon said no. He believed Nigeria must stay as one country. The massive disagreement started the tragic Nigerian Civil War in 1967. The war lasted for 3 long years and it brought terrible suffering, hunger, and loss of lives to millions of people. Finally, in January 1970, the Biafran side surrendered. Instead of punishing the people who fought against the government, Gowon did something highly unexpected. He declared no victor, no vanquished. This meant there was no winner and no loser. He wanted everyone to come back together as brothers and sisters, and he started a massive plan to build the roads, schools, and hospitals destroyed by the war. Right after the war, Nigeria entered a period of massive wealth because of oil. The country was making so much money from oil exports that Gowon once famously said Nigeria's problems was not money, but how to spend it. He used this oil money to build huge flyover bridges in Lagos, national stadiums, and highways. But as the years went on, the people and the army started getting tired of his rule. Gowon had promised to hand power back to the civilian government by 1976, but he later changed his mind, saying the country was not ready yet. This broken promise made many top army officers very angry. Widespread rumors of corruption among his governors also began to ruin his reputation. In July 1975, Gowon traveled to Kampala, Uganda for a big meeting with other African leaders. While he was away, his own military officers went on the national radio and announced that Gowon had been overthrown. Gowon did not fight back or try to start another war from outside. He calmly accepted the news while in Uganda.
From all indication, a new government has been established in Nigeria. I wish to state that I, on my part, have also accepted the change and pledge my full loyalty to my nation, to my country, and the new government.
After Gowon was quietly removed, the army gave the seat of power to General Murtala Muhammad.
Fellow Nigerians, events of the past few years have indicated that despite our great human and material resources, the government has not been able to fulfill the legitimate expectations of our people. Nigeria has been left to drift. This situation, if not arrested, would inevitably have resulted in chaos and even bloodshed. In the endeavor to build a strong, united, and virile nation, Nigerians have shed much blood. The thought of further bloodshed, for whatever reasons, must, I'm sure, be revolting to our people. The armed forces, having examined the situation, came to the conclusion that certain changes were inevitable. After the Civil War, the affairs of state, hitherto a collective responsibility, became characterized by a lack of consultation, indecision, indiscipline, and even neglect.
Murtala was a man in a massive hurry to change Nigeria. Even though he ruled for only 200 days, he became one of the greatest heroes in the history of the country. Right from his first day in office, Murtala started a massive cleanup of the government. He sacked over 10,000 government workers and military officers because of corruption, laziness, and bad behavior. He took back stolen houses and money from corrupt politicians and gave them back to the public. He was also the leader who officially decided that Nigeria's capital city should move from crowded Lagos to Abuja, a neutral place in the center of the country where every ethnic group could feel at home. The people loved him because he did not act like a proud dictator. Muritala refused to drive around in huge convoy lines of armored cars with loud sirens that blocked the road of regular citizens. He used to drive through the streets of Lagos with just his driver and an assistant, stopping at traffic lights just like every other regular Nigerian. But his simple way of living gave his enemy the perfect chance to strike. On the morning of Friday, February 13, 1976, Muritala left his house to go to his office and attend Muslim prayers. He was inside his official car, a black Mercedes-Benz, driving through a place called Ikoyi in Lagos. Suddenly, the car got stuck in a heavy Lagos traffic jam near a petrol station. While the car was waiting in traffic, a group of soldiers led by an officer named Colonel Bukasuka Dimka ran out from hiding. They surrounded Muritala's car with heavy guns and opened fire. Bullets rained down on the vehicle, shattering the glass. Muritala Muhammad, his driver, his assistants, and his bodyguard were all shot dead right in the middle of the traffic. Muritala was only 37 years old when he was murdered. The coup starters went on the radio to try and take over the country, but the rest of the Nigerian army refused to follow them. The coup failed, and Dimka and his men were hunted down and executed. Nigeria wept bitterly for Muritala. To ensure nobody ever forgets his sacrifice, the government named the biggest airport in the country after him, the Muritala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos. They also placed his face on the front of the 20 naira note, which Nigerians still use every single day. After the tragic murder of Muritala Muhammad, the entire country was shaking with fear. The army officers knew they needed someone stronger to steady the ship. They went to General Olusegun Obasanjo, who was Muritala's second in command. At first, Obasanjo was deeply afraid. He did not want to take the job because he had just seen his boss get sprayed with bullets in broad daylight. But his fellow officers begged him, and he finally agreed to become the new military head of state. Obasanjo made a big promise to the nation. He said he would not change anything from Muritala's master plan. He promised to follow Muritala's footsteps completely, especially the plan to hand power back to an elected civilian government by October 1979. During these 3 years in power, Obasanjo focuses heavily on farming. He launched a massive program called Operation Feed the Nation to encourage all Nigerians, including students and soldiers, to start growing their own food so the country wouldn't rely on expensive food from abroad. As 1979 came closer, many people thought Obasanjo would change his mind and keep the power for himself, just like other military dictators across Africa. But Obasanjo kept his word. He organized a nationwide democratic election, and a man named Alhaji Shehu Shagari won the vote. On October 1, 1979, a ceremony took place in Lagos. General Olusegun Obasanjo stood up, removed his military uniform, and voluntarily handed the staff of the power over to Shagari. By doing this, Obasanjo made history as the very first military rulers in Nigeria to willingly give up power to civilian government. He stepped down completely and went to his village in Ota to start a quiet life as a commercial chicken farmer. This brought a happy end to the bloody military era of the 1960s to 1970s, and it gave birth to a new Nigeria Second Republic. Alhaji Shehu Shagari took over power with a big smile on his face, wearing a store signature cap. This started Nigerian Second Republic. Shagari was a gentle school teacher who entered politics, and he wanted to give Nigeria a better life. Right away, his government started 2 big projects, building cheap houses for the poor and funding massive farming programs under a plan called Green Revolution. He also started building the new capital city of Abuja that Muritala had planned. But soon, a heavy storm hit the economy. Nigeria relied almost entirely on selling oil to make money. Suddenly, the price of oil crashed hard in the global market. The huge driver of money that Nigeria was enjoying completely dried up. To make matters worse, many of the politicians around Shagari were living very large and spending money recklessly. Widespread story of corruption and stolen public funds began to flood the news. Regular citizens started suffering because price of food and basic things went through the roof, and the government had to borrow massive amount of money just to survive. By 1983, the country was heavily in debt and people were very angry. Shagari ran for re-election that year and won, but the opposition parties cried out that the election was heavily rigged. The political atmosphere was boiling once again. On the New Year Eve, December 31, 1983, while regular Nigerians were celebrating the coming New Year, the military struck again. Soldiers, led by top generals, moved tanks into the street and took over the radio stations. They did not drop any bombs or kill Shagari. They simply surrounded his location, arrested him, and locked him up in a safe house. The soldiers declared that Shagari democracy was corrupted and had failed the country. Shagari was kept under house arrest for a few years, but he was eventually released like Gowon. He survived the dangerous seat of power and lived a long, quiet life until he passed away naturally in a hospital on December 28, 2018, at the ripe old age of 93. His removal brought a sudden end to Nigeria's second attempt at democracy, and the man who took over from him was a strict no-nonsense military general. After Shagari was locked up, the military chose Major General Muhammadu Buhari to be the new head of state. Buhari was a tall, strict soldier who did not smile, and he came with the one clear mission: to force discipline onto Nigerians and wipe out corruption,
which relates to the fundamental objectives and the directive principles of state policy. However, the Nigerian people watched helplessly while over the succeeding 4-year period of the first term of the defunct administration, most of government of the Federation failed to provide even the minimum of good government. The otherwise born economy of the first 2 fiscal years, 1979-1980 and 1980, was allowed to run down through mismanagement. Not only was there an inadequate response to the global recession caused by the worldwide oil glut and the oil production crisis which beset OPEC member countries, but measures designed to curb Nigeria's vulnerability to the vagaries of oil market were applied in half-hearted manner. The monetary and fiscal measures introduced under Economic Stabilization Act 1982 to boost local production of goods, improve foreign exchange reserves, and make the economy more self-sufficient and self-reliant were not implemented in a manner in which they could have the desired effect. The promised import food item to supplement the shortfall in agricultural production was not fulfilled for the benefit of the people.
Buhari believed that Nigeria's biggest problem was that people were too lawless. To fix this, he and his second in command, Tunde Idiagbon, launched a famous program called the War Against Indiscipline. Suddenly, life in Nigeria changed completely. Soldiers carrying withstood at the bus stop to force people to form neat. If you threw trash on the road, arrived late to work, or tried to jump the line anywhere, you would be severely punished on the spot. Buhari also changed the color of Nigeria's notes overnight to trap corrupt politicians who had hidden stolen cash in their houses. But Buhari's rules was not just strict. It became very scary for many people. He passed a law that made it a crime for journalists to write any story that made the military government look bad. Even if the story was completely true, he locked up hundreds of politicians, businessmen, and journalists without any proper trial. The atmosphere in the country became heavy with fear. While regular citizens were complaining about the lack of freedom, top army officers were also getting highly uncomfortable. They felt Buhari and Idiagbon were becoming too powerful and arrogant and refused to listen to advice from other generals. In August 1985, after just 20 months in power, Buhari's own Army Chief of Staff, General Ibrahim Babangida, decided to strike. It was during the Muslim Eid celebrations, and Tunde Idiagbon was out of the country on a religious trip to Saudi Arabia. Babangida took advantage of this absence. Soldiers loyal to Babangida quickly arrested Buhari and locked him up. There was no bloodshed or shooting. Buhari was simply removed from office and kept under house arrest for more than 3 years. Buhari survived the removal, but as you will see later in history, his journey with the Nigerian presidency was far from over. The man who overthrew Buhari was General Ibrahim Babangida. He was a completely different kind of leader. While Buhari was strict and never smiled, Babangida smiled all the time. People even gave him the nickname Maradona, after the famous football player, because he was incredibly clever at playing political games and slipping away from trouble. Babangida started his rule by opening the prison doors and releasing the journalists and politicians that Buhari had locked up. He promised that he would bring back freedom and hand over power to a civilian government very soon. But behind that famous smile, Babangida held on to power with an iron fist. He survived 2 major coup attempts by executing the soldiers who tried to overthrow him. To fix the economy, which was still struggling, he introduced a heavy economic plan called the Structural Adjustment Program. This plan cut government spending and changed the value of the naira. It made life very hard for regular citizens, and the price of food kept rising. When it came to democracy, Babangida played a massive game of hide and seek with the nation. He kept shifting the date of elections. He would promise to hand over power this year, then he would cancel it and shift it to the next year. He did this for 8 long years. Finally, on June 12, 1993, Babangida allowed the presidential election to happen. A wealthy and highly popular businessman named Chief MKO Abiola ran for president. Millions of Nigerians, both rich and poor, Christian and Muslim, came out to vote. It was the most peaceful and fairest election in the entire history of Nigeria. Everyone was happy, waiting for Abiola to be announced as the winner. Then Babangida did something that shocked the whole world. Before the final result could be officially finished, Babangida went on the television and cancelled the entire election. He gave various political excuses, but the truth was simple. The military generals did not want to leave office. This move threw Nigerians into total fire. Massive protests broke out on the streets. People burning tires, blocked roads, and demanded that Abiola be given his mandate. The country was on the brink of another civil war, and the pressure from the public and international community became too hot for Babangida to handle. Realizing he could no longer control the chaos, Babangida made a speech saying he would step aside. On August 26, 1993, he resigned from office and left Lagos for his massive mansion in Minna. He survived the seat of power, but his smile left Nigeria in deep trouble and he handed the country over to a weak temporary leader. After Babangida stepped aside, he left behind a massive mess. To try and calm the angry citizens who wanted a civilian leader, Babangida picked a businessman named Chief Ernest Shonekan to lead a temporary government. Shonekan was a highly respected corporate boss, not a politician or a soldier. But right from his first day in office, Shonekan's government was completely powerless. The people of Nigeria refused to accept him. They said nobody voted for Shonekan, and they demanded that Chief MKO Abiola, the man who actually won the June 12 election, should be made the president. Massive street protests continue. Workers went on strike, and the courts even declared that Shonekan's government was illegal. Shonekan tried his best to keep the country moving, but he was surrendered by wolves. Babangida had left behind a very powerful military general as Shonekan's defense minister, General Sani Abacha. Abacha was just waiting for the perfect time to strike. On November 17, 1993, after Shonekan had ruled for only 83 days, Abacha walked into Shonekan's office at the President's Villa. He did not come alone. He came with senior military officers and struck full of heavy armed soldiers. Abacha and his men surrounded Shonekan. They did not shoot him, but they made it clear that he had two choices: sign a resignation paper immediately or face the consequences. Looking at the guns around him, Shonekan knew he had no choice. He quietly signed the paper and stepped down. Shonekan walked away alive and returned to his private business life. He lived a long life and died a natural death in a hospital in Lagos, January 11, 2022, at the age of 85. His super short 83-day rule was over. With Shonekan out of the way, military took total control of Nigeria once again, and the man who took the seat was the most feared dictator in Nigerian history. General Sani Abacha was the most feared military dictator in the history of Nigeria. He was a quiet man who almost never smiled. He always wore dark sunglasses. Nobody could see his eyes. Or guess what he was thinking? As soon as he looked over Shonekan, Abacha destroyed every trace of democracy. He banned all political parties, dissolved the National Assembly, and took total control of the country. When Chief MKO Abiola stood up and declared himself the rightful president based on the June 12 election, Abacha did not hesitate. He sent soldiers to arrest Abiola, threw him into prison, and kept him locked up in solitary confinement. Anyone who protested or spoke out against Abacha's government was either thrown into jail, forced to run out of the country, or mysteriously assassinated on the street. Because of this human rights abuse, Western countries completely isolated Nigeria, cutting off relationships and treating the nations like an outcast. Yet, Abacha did not care. He kept the economy surprisingly stable, but behind the scenes, he and his family were packing billions of dollars of public oil money into secret banks accounts across Europe, money that Nigeria is still recovering today, known as the Abacha loot. Abacha felt so powerful that he planned to transform himself into a civilian president. He forced the new political party he created to endorse him as their only candidate. It looked like he was going to rule Nigeria forever. On the morning of June 8, 1998, the news flashed across the country. General Sani Abacha was dead. He died suddenly inside the presidential villa in Abuja at the age of 54. Because he died so unexpectedly, rumors exploded everywhere. The official government report stated that he died from a sudden heart attack, but many people believed a different, more dramatic story. Rumors claimed that Abacha was poisoned during a private late-night party involving foreign women who gave him laced apples. His body was quickly packed into a plane, flown to his hometown in Kano, and buried him on the same day, according to Islam religion. Abacha's sudden death brought a massive sigh of relief across Nigeria. People actually danced and celebrated on the street. He was a man who ruled with complete terror. But his end proved that no matter how powerful a dictator becomes, history can change in a single heartbeat. With Abacha's sudden gone, top military officers met in the middle of the night to choose a new leader. They picked General Abdulsalam Abubakar. Abdulsalam was a quiet, easygoing general who was actually preparing to retire from the army before power was dropped into his hand. He took over a country that was completely broken, angry, and on the verge of boiling over. Everyone was tired of military rule. Abdulsalam knew that if the army tried to hold on to power any longer, Nigeria could explode into a massive war. Right from his first week, he told the nation that he had no interest in staying in the seat of power. He promised to pack his bag and hand the country over to an elected civilian government within just 1 year. Many Nigerians did not believe him because past generals had broken the same promise, but Abdulsalam was a man of his word. To prove he was serious, he released political prisoners that Abacha had locked up. Tragically, just 1 month after Abacha died, Chief MKO Abiola also died suddenly of a heart attack while still in custody. Right before he could be released, the news caused massive riots, but Abdulsalam managed to calm the country down by moving forward with his plan. On May 29, 1999, Abdulsalam kept his promise at a massive ceremony in Abuja. He stood before the world, handed the staff of power over to the new elected civilian president, and walked away. His entire rules lasted for only 11 months. By handing over power so quickly, Abdulsalam saved Nigeria from self-destruction. He became the second military ruler to willingly step down, and his short rule gave birth to the Fourth Republic, bringing an end to military dictatorship in Nigeria forever. He retired quietly to his home in Minna, where he still lives today as a respected peacemaker. The man who won the 1999 election and took over from the military was an old face, General Olusegun Obasanjo, but this time he was not wearing a green army uniform. He came back as a civilian politician wearing traditional Agbada clothing, starting Nigeria's Fourth Republic. The military and political leader chose Obasanjo because they felt he was the only man strong enough to keep the army inside the barrack and hold the country together. Obasanjo served as president for 8 full years, winning a second term in 2003. During this time, the country enjoyed oil money so much because global oil price went up again. Obasanjo used his international connection to do something amazing. He cleared billions of dollars of foreign debts that had been weighing Nigerians down for decades. He also brought the mobile phone revolution to Nigeria. Before Obasanjo, regular people had to queue for hours at the telephone office just to make a single call. He opened the doors for telecom companies, and suddenly, millions of Nigerians could buy a SIM card and mobile phones. He also created agencies like the EFCC to chase down corrupt politicians and internet scammers. But Obasanjo's rule was not without heavy drama. He fought bitterly with his vice president Atiku Abubakar, which almost tore their political party apart. As his second time was coming to an end in 2007, a massive political standard shook the country. Rumors spread that Obasanjo was secretly pushing a plan to change the Nigerian constitution so he could run for a third time as a president. The public and the National Assembly fought back heavily against this plan, and it failed. Realizing the game was up, Obasanjo stepped stepped down on May 29, 2007, he handed power over to the next elected president. Obasanjo survived the seat of power a second time. He went back to his massive farm in Ota, but he remained one of the most vocal elder statesmen in Africa, constantly writing long controversial letters to criticize any president who takes over after him. The man who took over from Obasanjo was Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. He was a quite highly educated former chemistry teacher who had served as a state governor. He made history right from his first day by being the first Nigerian president to openly declare exactly how much money and properties he owned, proving to the people that he was a completely honest leader. Yar'Adua inherited a major crisis in the Niger Delta region, where armed militants were blowing up oil pipelines and kidnapping foreign workers because their land was polluted and neglected. This trouble was destroying the country's oil revenue. Instead of sending the army to kill them, Yar'Adua did something beautiful. He launched the Niger Delta Amnesty Program. He invited the militants to come out of the creeks, drop their guns, and receive monthly stipends, university education, and vocational training from the government. The militants accepted, dropped their weapons, and peace returned to the region overnight. The people loved him because he was a gentle leader who respected the law and tried to lower fuel prices. But Yar'Adua had a silent enemy. He was suffering from a severe kidney and heart illness. As the months went on, he became weaker. In November 2009, his health failed completely and he was rushed to a hospital in Saudi Arabia. He left the country without officially handing power over to his vice president, which threw Nigeria into months of political confusion and panic. No one knew if the president was alive or dead. In February 2010, he was flown back to Nigeria under the cover of darkness and taken straight into the presidential villa on a life support machine. On the 9th of May 5, 2010, the sad news was officially announced. President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua had passed away inside the villa at the age of 58. The entire nation fell into deep mourning. He did not leave power because he was overthrown or voted out. He was taken by death. Nigerians remember him today as one of the most honest, well-meaning and peaceful presidents the country has ever had, whose life and big dreams for Nigeria were cut tragically short. After Yar'Adua passed away, his vice president, a man named Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, stepped up to become the president. People always said he had a special kind of luck because of his name. He was a quiet university lecturer from a poor family of canoe makers, and he had risen to the highest position in the land without fighting for it. He later ran for election in 2011 and won a full term. During his time in office, Jonathan focused heavily on expanding the economy. He built new universities, reformed the electricity sector, and brought massive financial investments into Nigeria, making it the biggest economy in Africa at the time. But Jonathan's government faced a terrible bloody nightmare: the rise of the Boko Haram terrorist group.
Bring back our army. Jonathan! Girl, Christian, bring back our army.
The terrorists launched bomb attack on church, mosque, markets, and buildings, killing thousands of innocent citizens. The biggest shock came in April 2014 when Boko Haram kidnapped 276 schoolgirls from a secondary school in a village called Chibok. This tragic event caused global outrage, and millions of people around the world started protesting, demanding that the government save the girls. Regular citizens felt Jonathan was too gentle and slow in fighting the terrorists, and anger began to build against his administration. By 2015, the political atmosphere was boiling. Jonathan ran for re-election, but he faced a massive combined opposition party led by the former military ruler Muhammadu Buhari. The election was incredibly tense. Everyone across the world was afraid that the Nigeria would burst into a massive violent civil war if Jonathan lost and refused to leave office. As the final votes were being counted, it became clear that Buhari was winning. Then Goodluck Jonathan did something that completely changed African history. Before the election officials could even finish announcing the final result, Jonathan picked up his phone. He called Buhari and said, "Congratulations, General." He gracefully conceded defeat and told the whole world, "My ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian." This single phone call shocked the whole world and stopped any plans for war. And today, he travels all over the world as a respected global ambassador for peace. General Muhammadu Buhari won the 2015 election, making history as the first opposition candidate to ever defeat a sitting president in Nigeria. This time, he didn't use tanks, he used the power of the ballot box. The people voted for him because they remembered his streak past. They hoped he would use that iron hand to finally crush the Boko Haram terrorists and wiped out corruption completely. Buhari served as president for 2 full terms, lasting 8 years. During his time, he poured massive amounts of money into building physical infrastructure. He built huge modern railway lines connecting different cities, constructed massive bridges like the Second Niger Bridge, and funded local rice farming so Nigerians could stop importing food from other countries. But his 8 years in office were incredibly tough for regular Nigerians. The country entered into heavy bad hunger and the value of the naira dropped drastically. Price of food and everyday items went through the roof. To make matters worse, new security threats emerged. Armed bandits began kidnapping school children for ransom across the north, and violent clashes broke out. Many citizens felt Buhari had become too quiet and detached inside the villa while the country was struggling. Buhari also faced severe personal health battles. He spent months in a London hospital treating an undisclosed illness, which made people wonder if he would even finish his term. But he survived the illness and completed his full constitutional term limits. As the 2023 elections approached, Buhari made it clear that he was ready to go home. He didn't try to extend his time or change the law. On May 29, 2023, after a highly competitive election, Muhammadu Buhari packed his bags, officially handed the staff of power over to the next elected leader. The man who took over the seat of power in 2023 was Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Before becoming president, he was a highly powerful political strategist and a former governor of Lagos State. He won a very tight and strict three-way election by using his famous political slogan, Emiloko, which means it is my turn. Tinubu came into office knowing that Nigeria's economy was in deep trouble and needed urgent heavy changes. On his very first day in office, during his inauguration speech, he shocked the entire nation by announcing that the government will no longer pay for the cheap fuel. He declared fuel subsidy is gone. For decades, Nigeria has spent billions of dollars every year to keep petrol price low. But Tinubu argued that this money was just entering into the pockets of the corrupt smugglers and should be used to build schools and roads instead. Right after that, he made another major reform. He unified the exchange rate of the naira, letting the currency float freely against the US dollar instead of having the government control its price artificially. These two major moves were like a heavy medical operation for the country Immediately, the price of petrol jumped up by over 300% and the value of the naira dropped significantly. Because of this, the cost of food, transportations, and everyday living rose high, making life incredibly difficult for millions of regular Nigerians. Massive protests even broke out on the street as people cried out under the heavy economic pain. Tinubu acknowledged the massive suffering but begged Nigerians to be patient. He explained that those painful choices were like a bitter medicine needed to save the country from total bankruptcy and to build a wealthier, self-reliant nation for the future. But instead of things to be getting better, everything is getting harder every day by day. The level of insecurity gets more higher and higher every day. Bandits kidnapping children, asking for ransom, killing people, teachers, workers, and even civilians. Today, many people saying the terms of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the most worst term Nigeria has ever seen. Bola Ahmed Tinubu sits on the seat of power today as Nigeria's 16th leader, holding the steering wheel of Africa's most populous nation. And this is the complete history of the leaders that has ruled Nigeria. And the question emerged, do you think Nigeria is moving forward or going backward? Which one of the government section is the best in Nigeria? Drop your comment at the comment section and don't forget, click on subscribe button so you'll be the first person to be seeing our videos whenever we upload a new video.